I'm sorry, folks. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. I have to start the Facebook stream too. So let me do that real quick. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, my friends. God's blessings upon you. Let's praise the Lord together, my friends. We have all awakened in God's shelter. Now we've come to praise His name together. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, my friend. Sing Hosanna. Hosanna. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Allow a power, Yahweh, power in the sanctuary of our Lord's protection and the stronghold of our Lord's defense. With His love, our spirits are illumined as we glorify His name. Our hearts are blessed. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My friend. My friend. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, my friends. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you. Good morning, folks in our Zoom stream and in our Facebook stream. We got Vicky here in the Zoom stream and Camby's. Good morning, and Andy. Good morning, and we know Jeremiah is out there somewhere. He's the Clearwater Bahá'í. And Jiva, Jiva's joining us today. Good morning, Jiva. And Adam, how you doing, Adam? And Hushang and Farah. And Gilbert, good morning. And we see all of you out there in Facebook, but it's such a small, as I'm using my phone for that, so we don't know who you are, and I'm not going to get up and look closely. But good morning. We're glad you're all with us. And how you doing, Daryl?
Very good, sir.
You
Thank
good?
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
glad we could be back. I was out of town last week, so we couldn't do the thing together. And
It's called synchronicity.
yeah, is that what it's called?
We had none last week. So
I
this
thought
week
I
we're
thought it was just called you taking a break. Okay.
what can I say?
No, I was out of town, so it is a little more. Well, we'll say it's a little more complicated a process. So,
All right.
but again, we're glad everyone is here, and let's go ahead and start with a prayer. This is a prayer by Abdul Baha, and I will say, I do have my. I think like many, but I don't know. Maybe I should assume. Do you have your favorite prayers from the Baha'i writings?
I can't say I have a favorite, but there are many that I tend to turn to
Yeah, and I'm the same
occasionally.
way. Yeah, I don't just have one, but this is one of my favorite prayers. This is actually from Abdul Baha. And it's just, to me, it's I don't know what to pray for today, so I'm going to pray for everything. This is, to me, this is that prayer. O Lord, my God, and my haven in my distress, my shield and my shelter in my woes, my asylum and refuge in time of need, and in my loneliness, my companion. In my anguish, my solace, and in my solitude, a loving friend, the remover of the pangs of my sorrows and the pardoner of my sins. Wholly unto thee do I turn, fervently imploring thee with all my heart, my mind, and my tongue, to shield me from all that runs counter to thy will, in this the cycle of thy divine unity, and to cleanse me of all defilement that will hinder me from seeking stainless and unsullied the shade of the tree of thy grace. Have mercy, O Lord, on the feeble, make whole the sick, and quench the burning thirst. Gladden the bosom wherein the fire of thy love doth smolder, and set it aglow with the flame of thy celestial love and spirit. Robe the tabernacles of divine unity with the vesture of holiness, and set upon my head the crown of thy favor. Illumine my face with the radiance of the orb of thy bounty, and graciously aid me in ministering at thy holy threshold. Make my heart overflow with love for thy creatures, and grant that I may become the sign of thy mercy, the token of thy grace, the promoter of concord amongst thy loved ones, devoted unto thee, uttering thy commemoration, and forgetful of self, but ever mindful of what is thine. O God, my God, stay not from me the gentle gales of thy pardon and grace, and deprive me not of the well springs of thine aid and favor. 'Neath the shade of thy protecting wings, let me nestle, and cast upon me the glance of thine all-protecting eye. Loose my tongue to laud thy name amidst thy people, that my voice may be raised in great assemblies, and from my lips may stream the flood of thy praise. Thou art in all truth the gracious, the glorified, the mighty, the omnipotent. And again, this is a prayer by Abdul Baha, one of my favorites.
Okay.
Now, of course, as usual, as we've been doing for a few weeks now, we are reading again from the book One Common Faith. One Common Faith. And I know we're running a little late, but I got to tell you, the more I read, even though I had read it before, because you know my resistance to it, the more I read, the more I thought, what was I thinking? This is such, it gives you so much insight into why things are as they are. What is the role of religion? Why doesn't it seem to be working for a lot of people today? And what should be our expectations of it? And well, last week we some of the things that were briefly discussed was let me make sure I'm right here. Yeah, the succession of revelations. Yes, revelations are ongoing. The fact that science and religion actually are supposed to work together. It isn't a choice of one over the other. They are both part of the ongoing process of progressive revelation. They are both part of it. And there was also some explanation that we won't go into as to all of the different dispensations, the different revelations, how they move mankind forward. And today, we're going to be answering some, maybe you haven't considered these questions, but I think they're questions a lot of people have considered and feel like maybe religion hasn't had the answers to. I personally beg to differ. One of those questions is, if religion is so good, why do so many bad things happen in religious causes, shall we say? And is it really religion, religious efforts that are the problem? And anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Why, in this process of revelation, why are things that we would call bad in the name of religion? Why do they happen? And sometimes, admittedly, they're bad and they shouldn't be happening. It's a perversion of religion. But sometimes it's not. So, Daryl,
Shall
if
we
you will,
begin?
please.
For those of you who have the book and are following along, we are at the bottom of page 34.
Yeah, I forgot to say that. Yeah.
Confusion about the role of religion in cultivating moral consciousness is equally apparent in popular understanding of its contribution to the shaping of society. Perhaps the most obvious example is the inferior social status most sacred texts assigned to women. Let me say that again. Perhaps the most obvious example is the inferior social status most sacred texts assigned to women. While the resulting benefits enjoyed by men were no doubt a major factor in consolidating such a conception, moral justification was unquestionably applied by people's understanding of the intent of the scriptures themselves. With few exceptions, these texts address themselves to men, assigning to women a supportive and subordinate role in the life of both religion and society. Sadly, such understanding made it deplorably easy to attach primary blame to women for failure in disciplining of the sexual impulse, a vital feature of moral advancement.
Okay, Daryl, you're going a little fast there, man.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
And you said a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
again, usually I say I got to stop you there, but so I don't know if you had to put this, in slightly less lofty language, what would you say? I mean, here it is saying basically that, okay, in confusion about the role of religion in cultivating moral consciousness. That's the first thing that jumped out at me. One of the purposes of religion is to cultivate moral consciousness. Right. But in this whole long historical arc, women have been relegated to an inferior status.
Exactly.
And there was moral justification supplied by people's understanding of the intent of the scriptures. In other words, people tried to justify this morally. But it says, with few exceptions, these texts address themselves to men, assigning to women a supportive and subordinate role in the life of both religion and society. I like the fact that they say sadly.
Of course, because it is sad.
It's sadly. Such understanding made it deplorably easy to attach primary blame to women for failure in the disciplining of the sexual impulse. Think about how much, in society, in the development of various cultures and so forth, how much that simple thing, I don't mean it's easy, but it is simple, the disciplining of the sexual impulse and the failure to do so has placed the blame on women, at least in the minds of many. They've used them as the excuse.
Mostly in the minds of men.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I just felt like probably need to point that out. Anyway, I'm sorry.
In a modern frame of reference, attitudes of this kind are readily recognized as prejudiced and unjust.
Boom.
In a modern frame of reference, attitudes of this kind are readily recognized as prejudiced and unjust.
Is it okay to say boom instead of allow a power or hallelujah? Boom.
However you want. At the stages of social development at which all of the major faiths came into existence, scriptural guidance sought primarily to civilize, to the extent possible, relationships resulting in intractable historical circumstances. It needs little insight to appreciate that clinging to primitive norms in the present day would defeat the very purpose of religion's patient cultivation of moral issues, moral sense. Comparable considerations have pertained in relations between societies. The long and arduous preparation of the Hebrew people for the mission required of them is an illustration of the complexity and stubborn character of the moral challenges involved. In order that the spiritual capacities appealed to by the prophets might awaken and flourish, the inducements offered by neighboring idolatrous cultures had, at all costs, to be resisted. Scriptural accounts of the condign punishments, condign, C-O-N-D-I-G-N, condign
Another word
punishments that befell both rulers and subjects who violated the principle illustrated the importance attached to it by the divine purpose. At somewhat comparable issue arose the struggle of the newborn community founded by Muhammad to survive attempts by pagan Arab tribes to extinguish it, and in the barbaric cruelty and relentless spirit of vendetta. Oh, I think that's just a page.
No, you do.
Oh, of vendetta animating the attackers.
I'm going to stop you there,
Let
man.
me go back.
I'm going to stop you there. You're reading fast now.
A somewhat, I'm going to go back. A somewhat comparable issue arose in the struggle of the newborn community founded by Muhammad to survive attempts by pagan Arab tribes to extinguish it, and in the barbaric cruelty and relentless spirit of vendetta animating the attackers.
I'm going to stop you there because, again, some major, really important concepts have been pointed out. Number one, I want to go back to the previous paragraph where it says, at the stages of social development at which all of the major faiths came into existence. Listen to this. Scriptural guidance sought primarily to civilize. That was the purpose. To civilize society. Scriptural guidance sought primarily to civilize, to the extent possible, relationships resulting from intractable historical circumstances. Intractable means, I did look that up, unmanageable. Scriptural guidance sought primarily to civilize, to the extent possible, relationships resulting from unmanageable historical circumstances. It needs little insight to appreciate that clinging to primitive norms in the present day would defeat the very purpose of religion's patient cultivation of moral sense. So if we cling to old ways that met their purpose at a particular time but are no longer appropriate for today,
or applicable,
exactly, we defeat the purpose of religion, and it's often done. I mean, okay, I'm going to take two steps, and because I'm getting ready to step up on my soapbox. I'm stepping down. And in personal relationships and also among societies, comparable considerations have pertained in relations between societies. Think about societies that may have been formed under one particular religious tradition, and interacting with people from a different religious tradition. Comparable considerations have pertained in relationships between societies. And it points out, the preparation of the Hebrew people for the mission required of them. It just goes on and on and on, and basically pointing out that there's a time and place for everything.
That's right.
And when that time and place or those circumstances have passed, you no longer need to be applying, what what's the word I'm looking for? Applying not responses, answers. That's not it. Solutions. That's it. Solutions to problems in a way that really doesn't solve those problems anymore. Or in a way, or using obsolete information to deal with current circumstances.
Well, in the process of all of this happening, it creates a certain amount of social upheaval because people are very want to hang on to the old traditions, and anyone or anything that comes in that is new is always suspect and always under attack
Yes.
because we don't we never want to give up what's comfortable to us or what we've learned.
Yes.
We have to have
Yes.
open minds to move forward.
We want to stay in that.
So,
I've often
and
said,
socially, that if you look at where religion is in relation to any society, it is going to be that change agent somewhere in there that is going to either cause strife or it's going to move people in the right direction.
yes, yes,
So,
yes. And sometimes we have to admit that change is difficult. It's certainly difficult on a
always.
personal level and certainly difficult on a social level. I often have said, a lot of times what we think of as a comfort zone is not really that comfortable. Sometimes it's just a familiar zone. It's what I
Absolutely.
know. There is something better, but I'm familiar with this, and we can apply that even on the level of society. There's something that would meet your situation better. It's not the thing you're used to, and changing is going to, it's going to be a challenge, and yet in the end, it will still be better for the current circumstances.
No one familiar with the historical details will have difficulty in understanding the severity of the Quran's injunctions on the subject. While the monotheistic beliefs of Jews and Christians were to be accorded respect, no compromise with idolatry was permitted. In a relatively brief space of time, this draconian rule had succeeded in unifying the tribes of the Arabian Peninsula and launching the newly forged community on well over 5 centuries of moral, intellectual, cultural, and economic achievement, unmatched before or since in the speed and scope of its expansion. We're talking about the Islam.
Yes. Yes.
History tends to be a stern judge. Ultimately, in its uncompromising perspective, the consequences to those who would have blindly strangled such enterprises in the cradle will always be set off against the benefits accruing to the world as a whole from the triumph of the Bible's vision of human possibilities and the advances made possible by the genius of Islamic civilization.
I'm sorry, you're going to say something.
So it's affording credit to both Islam and to Christianity for moving things forward.
But I can tell you, again, having coming from a Christian background, I have heard even ministers who were speaking out against Islam, and they were talking about the cruelty, not again, the cruel acts that are perpetrated in a perversion of this religion. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the cruelty that is sometimes pointed to as far as what Muhammad was dealing with at that time. And it says here a somewhat comparable issue of the newborn community founded by Muhammad to survive attempts by Arab tribes to extinguish it. You're talking about a prophet working to establish this new dispensation, reveal a new revelation.
And actually a new social order. at the same
Exactly,
time.
exactly. By pagan, to survive attempts by pagan Arab tribes to extinguish it, and in the barbaric cruelty and relentless spirit of vendetta animating the attackers. He was dealing with a lot. I mean, those people that accepted this new revelation were dealing with a lot. And so we can look at it from today's standards and, judge it negatively. And yet what we're about to read in this next section basically says to look at something in the past and judge it by today's standards really isn't being fair. I mean, you can't always do that. I'm shutting up.
No, you're going to read.
Oh, come on, man. Okay.
Among.
Actually, I'm going to go back to ultimately. History tends to be a stern judge. Ultimately, in its uncompromising perspective, the consequences to those who would have blindly strangled such enterprises in the cradle will always be set off against the benefits accruing to the world as a whole from the triumph of the Bible's vision of human possibilities and the advances made possible by the genius of Islamic civilization. Among the most contentious of such issues in understanding society's evolution towards spiritual maturity has been that of crime and punishment. It's always a tough one, crime and punishment. While different in detail and degree, the penalties prescribed by most sacred texts for acts of violence against either the commonweal or the rights of other individuals tended to be harsh. I'll read that again. The penalties prescribed by most sacred texts for acts of violence against either the commonweal or the rights of other individuals tended to be harsh. Moreover, they frequently extended in permitting retaliation against the offenders by the injured parties or by members of their families. There are some places they still do that. In the perspective of history, however, one may reasonably ask what practical alternatives existed, and I'm going to put in parentheses my words, at that time. In the perspective of history, however, one may reasonably ask what practical alternatives existed in the absence, not merely of present-day programs of behavioral modification, we could call it rehabilitation, in the absence not merely of present-day programs of behavioral modification, but even of recourse to such coercive options as prisons and policing agencies, religions, I have to take these glasses off for some reason, my eyes are playing tricks on me. Religion's concern, remember that, religion's concern was to impress indelibly on general consciousness the moral unacceptability and practical costs of conduct whose effect would otherwise have been to demoralize efforts at social progress. So this whole thing about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, there was a purpose for it. At that time, they didn't have the systems we have now. They didn't have the methods we have now. The whole of civilization has since been the beneficiary. The whole of civilization has since been the beneficiary, and it would be less than honest not to acknowledge the fact.
Let's stop. It's time for a song.
Oh, by the way, I found the drum. It was there. My eyes were playing tricks on me. Oh God, make me a hollow reed from which the pith of self hath been blown, so that I may be a clean channel through which thy love to others may flow. Oh God, make me a hollow reed. Oh God, make me a hollow reed. I've given up impatience. Well, at least I'm trying. I've given up discontent. Well, I'm kind of working on that too. I will not chafe at my lot. I'm making a strong effort. Oh God, make me a hollow reed. Oh God, I am wholly thine. You are my teacher, my physician, and my guide. In your army, I'm a soldier. Oh God, make me a hollow reed. You train me and change me, give me strength, faith, and understanding. You make sure my burden is no more than I can bear. I know that you're holding a place for me in your army of light, and I'll thankfully live now to be fully prepared to serve you. Make me a hollow reed. Make me a hollow reed. Oh God, make me a hollow reed, from which the pith of self have been blown, so that I may be a clean channel through which thy love to others may flow. Oh God, make me a hollow reed. Oh God, make me a hollow reed. Oh God, make me a hollow reed. Make me a hollow reed. That was based on a prayer by Abdul Baha. Need to point that out. You want to continue, Daryl?
Yeah, I think we can squeeze in another paragraph here
I think
before
so
we get
too.
to our next phase here. So it's been throughout all of the religious dispensations whose origins have survived in written records. So it has been throughout all of the religious dispensations whose origins have survived in written records. Mendicancy.
Actually, it's I had to look it up. Mendicancy.
Mendicancy.
Fancy word for guess what? Begging.
Okay. Mendicancy, slavery, autocracy, conquest, ethnic prejudices, and other undesirable features of such interaction have gone unchallenged or been explicitly indulged, as religion sought to achieve reformations of behavior that were considered more immediately essential at given stages in the advance of civilization. To condemn religion because any one of its successive dispensations failed to address the whole range of social wrongs would be to ignore everything that has been learned about the nature of human development. Inevitably, anachronistic thinking of this kind must also create severe psychological handicaps in appreciating and facing the requirements of one's own time.
You know, as I was reading this paragraph, and again, as you were reading it, first of all, that word mendicancy,
Caught me by surprise.
yeah, but begging, I had to look that up, and it means, yeah, begging. It lists things here that, notice what it says. So it has been throughout all the religious dispensations whose origins have survived in written records. And then it lists some things that have just been considered absolutely, frowned upon and yet indulged. Mendicancy, which is again begging, mendicancy, slavery, autocracy, conquest, ethnic prejudices, and other undesirable features of social interaction have gone unchallenged or been explicitly indulged. You have to listen to the last part here. As religion sought to achieve reformations of behavior that were considered more immediately essential at given stages in the advance of civilization. Remember, we've been created to carry forth an ever-advancing civilization. So it's like saying there are certain things, okay, we won't deal with this now. We're going to go ahead and let that go for now. And so it points out to condemn religion, to condemn religion, because any one of its successive dispensations failed to address the whole range of social wrongs would be to ignore everything that has been learned about the nature of human development. Inevitably, anachronistic, meaning thinking that's not right for the time, anachronistic thinking of this kind must also create severe psychological handicaps in appreciating and facing the requirements of one's own time. I know we don't have time to finish, but man, this is so... Okay, cliffhanger. This section is very short, but we won't. Okay, I'm gonna go with you on this, Daryl, because it is time. It is your way. What if I read it fast?
Not today.
The whole thing about
it is in fact a cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger. Be anxiously concerned with the needs of the age you live in. Okay, all it's there's more there.
Much more.
And now at this time, as always, we like to have time when anyone who would like to offer up a prayer or song of your choosing, or a passage of your choosing, this is that time. And as always, we always like to start with our Kambiz moment, followed by our Andy moment, our Andy Murphy moment. Kambiz, Mr. Rahani, do you have something to share with us today?
Sure.
Please.
بپوش خطا از ما عطا است تو جفا از ما وفا است تو گناه از ما پناه است تو بیماری از ما شفا است تو بپوش و بیاموز وفا کن پناه ده شفا بخش Thank you.
Thank you, Kemby. Thank you very much. Andy, do you have something you'd like to share with us today?
Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, comes right back to you. Love is like a magic penny, hold on tight and you won't have any. Let it spend and give it away, comes right back to you. Happiness is something if you give it away, give it away. Something if you give it away, it comes right back to you. Happiness is like a magic penny, hold on tight and you won't have any. Let it spin and give it away, comes right back to you. Yeah, it comes right back to you.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share a prayer or reading with us today?
Divine springtime is come, O most exalted Pen, for the festival of the All-Merciful is fast approaching. Bestir thyself and magnify before the entire creation the name of God, and celebrate his praise, in such wise that all created things may be regenerated and made new. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you so much, Farah. Thank you. I love that passage. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
Okay.
Well then, let me readjust our Facebook stream here, camera.
And while you're doing that, I'd like to say that for those of you that don't know or who are new with us, that this is this thing that we do every Sunday is a collaborative effort from multiple communities, and we do it primarily under the auspices of the Clearwater Bahá'í Center. And anyone who is not a Baha'i, or even if you're Baha'i and you want to have more interest or dig deeper into the faith, there are some websites that you can go to that will allow you to get more information, and they are www.baha'i.us or www.baha'i.org or www.baha'iteachings.org. And if you happen to be in the Tampa Bay or Clearwater area, you can always go to the Clearwater Bahá'í website at www.clearwaterbaha'is.org.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Wow. See? We still have some time left.
Well, you know, it's good that you say we still have time left. This section that we're going over, talking about religion, really is kind of dear to me because it has a lot to do with how I happened to become a Baha'i, and I don't always share this story, but
I would like you to share it. We have time, and it's a great story, so please.
one of the when I was still a seeker, one of the things that happened to me was I used to get visited on a regular basis by Jehovah Witnesses. And I had a Jehovah Witness come to my door one time and ask me just one question. He said, "Do you think that religion has done its part to improve conditions in the world?" And you don't really have to think about that a whole lot. I mean, so much of the strife that occurs in the world today is in the name of religion. But if you dig a little deeper, it's not just in the name of religion, it's in the name of everything that religion represents to a lot of people. So when I dug a little deeper and discovered that, there was actually a religion that was not about warring peoples or about converting people or about that kind of thing. It was something that sparked my interest. So, and I had a friend who had been talking to me about the Baha'i faith. And finally, one day, when I said to him, I always felt that religion should be that glue that binds us, not the match that someone is going to strike and hold to a bomb to blow us all apart. Mm-hmm. And we were driving, he was driving, he stopped the car, he turned around, he grabbed me by the shoulders and turned me around. He said, "You need to talk to the Baha'is." So after that, he kept inviting me to Baha'i events, and eventually I became a Baha'i. But it was that one question that always stuck in my mind. Do you think religion has done its part to improve conditions in the world? Well, here we are, all of us. All of us, because I think at some point in our search for what religion can do and the possibilities of religion kind of manifested themselves in this faith.
Wow. I've heard you tell that story a whole lot. I never heard you put that little cap on it on the end, and I totally agree with you 100%. And this is not it may sound like we're doing a comparative thing, maybe inadvertently we're not really trying to, but because as you said, our job as Baha'is is not to convert people, but to simply teach this faith, and to anyone who would choose to listen. And if you find value in it and you want to know more about it, that's why we tell you there are places you can go and get, excuse me, and get some good information about it. So yeah, I hope I can sing this last song. My throat is very, very dry. I don't have anything to drink here, so oh boy, I'm gonna try it. So folks, just say what you say, Daryl. I'm gonna see if I can.
To say what I always say. What I always say at the end here is that if there is one thing that you can do to improve your life and the life of everyone around you and the life of anyone who comes in contact with you, is to share the love. It's easy, it's simple, it's not going to cost you anything at all to just share the love. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you'll never regret it.
O people of justice, be as brilliant as the light, and as splendid as the fire that blazed in the burning bush. The brightness of the fire of your love will no doubt fuse and unify the contending peoples and kindreds of the earth, whilst the fierceness of the flame of enmity and hatred cannot but result in strife and ruin. We beseech God that he may shield his creatures from the evil designs of his enemies. He verily hath power over all things. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Oh, oh. Be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Watch over yourselves, for the evil one is lying in wait, ready to entrap you. Gird yourselves against his wicked devices, and led by the light of the name of the all-seeing God, make your escape from the darkness that surroundeth you. Let your vision be world-embracing, rather than confined to your own self. These are the words of Baha'u'llah. Be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Oh, oh. Take care, everyone. Have a great
Thanks
week.
for joining us, folks.
Yeah, Baha'u'llah.